This is the segment that I was most excited about when we started to plan this. This conversation is one that is very important. And we want to thank our sponsors for dinner tonight, Butler Snow Law Firm. As elected officials and advocacy organizations, we can do a lot to affect the change of laws that we are working on and we're able to pass. But there's another side to this equation that we're going to explore right now. It's the private sector. And it takes all of us to affect the change that we need to protect voter rights, and our businesses and our business community partners have a unique platform to advocate. When we first started to conceive this idea that we would come together, and Mayor Lightfoot and I talked, and that was about the time that a letter had been published in the New York Times. You all remember that? It was shortly after Georgia had passed its laws. And we recognized that if we did this, the private sector needed to be in the room. So tonight we're going to talk about how we engage the private sector, and we have a unique person to do that. He has a unique perspective, and I'm excited that he's here. And we have someone as well who we all know is going to join him on stage, along with one of the top officials of the National Urban League. Can I tell you just a 30-second personal story? I made a lot of phone calls as we planned this session, or planned this whole event. Talked to mayors, county commissioners, city council members, governors, members of Congress. And we also reached out a great deal to the private sector, because we also had to raise money to make this happen. Not only were we raising money, but we said we need to get some folks on stage to talk about why it's important for the private sector to lean in. If there was a pain point, or at least a moment of epiphany, it was that many in the private sector are a little nervous about leaning in on something as important, critical, and general as voting. Not asking them to endorse a candidate or initiative, but voting, constitutional right to vote. And it stunned me that there's a great deal of trepidation out there. But tonight, you and I sit in this room because companies like Butler Snow Law Firm and Amazon and Western Union and United Airlines and others said, we're in. We believe in our constitutional right. They show courage, and I'm grateful because we're here because of them. And so tonight we have a CEO of a global company who says this is so important. I want to be there. And I want to talk about our responsibility on this issue and so many others in our nation. But before we get to him, I want to introduce someone we all know who was the vision and inspiration behind this entire conversation. He had a Hall of Fame career in basketball. His name is Earvin Magic Johnson. Magic and I had a conversation in 2016, and he said, Mike, if you ever have an occasion to convene people and talk about the importance of voting and protecting those rights, I got you. I'll be there. First person I called was who? Magic Johnson. I said, Magic, are you in? He said, Mike, I'm in. He said, you know what? I'm going to be there. And then 2 months later, he called and said, Mike, I gotta get out, I gotta go be overseas. Business calls you. Magic took on being an entrepreneur and started his own company to serve as a catalyst for fostering community and economic empowerment. If you ever get a moment and you happen to run into Magic, say, tell me the story about how you brought Starbucks to Inglewood, California. The story's amazing. He's used his platform to help get out the vote during elections and to advocate for voting rights and access. He has become a friend of mine when we learned that he and I had the same business mentor for decades and never knew it. So it's my pleasure tonight to not introduce him, because you all know him, but Magic wanted to make a statement tonight, and he's on video. He's an NBA legend, a very successful entrepreneur, and he's a voter rights advocate. Let's give it up for Magic Johnson.
Hello, I'm Magic Johnson. It's an honor to be a part of this national, nonpartisan conversation on voter rights, with so many accomplished civic leaders from across the country. I want to thank Mayor Michael Hancock and Mayor Lori Lightfoot for putting this together and recognizing this important issue, preserving our right and access to vote. As a young man growing up in Lansing, I was able to see and work for two African-American businessmen, Joel Ferguson and Greg Eaton, who are still incredible mentors to this day. Their companies directly impacted our community, and their leadership inspired me to dream big and to become an entrepreneur. When I first went into business after playing basketball, other mentors like Ron Brown and John Mack stressed that it was important to give back and positively impact my community. I built my business on bringing quality services and entertainment to the underserved communities across the country. I wanted to be a leader that young people could see, touch, and be inspired by to create change, starting right in their backyards. Throughout my journey, I realized it's important to recognize the needs of a community and to advocate on its behalf. As leaders, there are risks we face when discussing these issues, but it's not about us. It's about our families, friends, and neighbors who do not have our platform yet are affected just the same, if not more, by unfair laws. It's on all of us to leverage our platform for change. Since my HIV diagnosis, I have dedicated time and resources through my foundation and teamed up with healthcare partners to fight this disease in testing centers and in treatment facilities across the country. I focused on education by providing scholarship opportunities for young people to go to college and building empowerment centers where they have access to technology and other resources. Then, most recently, my company, Equitable, provided $325 million to the Paycheck Protection Program to directly benefit minority and women-owned businesses who were left out during the first round of funding. This is the work I love to do and will continue to do. We are blessed to live in the greatest country in the world, but we still have a lot of work to do. What we are discussing today is so important because America is unable to reach its full potential if we allow a fraction of our citizens to stifle the voices of our workers, our neighbors, our families, and our friends, and especially communities of color. Preserving voter rights and voter access should be important to all business leaders and entrepreneurs because these voters are our customers, our audience, and make up the communities we serve. It takes all of us bringing together our knowledge and resources to make a real difference. Tonight, I'm challenging businesses everywhere to join and support this conversation. God bless you, and have a great conversation.
Now, joining us tonight to lead the discussion on how the private sector must act is Senior Vice President of Equitable Justice and Strategic Initiatives at the National Urban League, Ms. Jerika Richardson. As she comes, let me share that Jerika leads the organization's advocacy, public education, and strategic work on civic engagement, police reform, criminal justice reform, and other justice-related areas, including voter rights. Please welcome to the stage, Jerika Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor Hancock. What an amazing video. Can we give the mayor another hand just for all he's done to bring us together this evening? So good evening, everyone. As the mayor said, I am Jerika Richardson. I'm the Senior Vice President for Equitable Justice and Strategic Initiatives at the National Urban League. And I'm honored to stand here on behalf of our President and CEO, Mark Morial, who unfortunately is unable to join us. President Morial wants to send his best regards and gratitude to Mayor Hancock and Mayor Lightfoot, and really to all the extraordinary public servants and community leaders gathered here today. We know that you all rise up against voter suppression every single day and work to protect access to the ballot box. In the long arc of the nation's history of racially motivated voter suppression, 2021 may stand as a distinct moment that changed everything that came after. It remains to be seen whether this year will be remembered as the year of advancing voting rights and the freedom to vote, or if this year will mark the shameful entrenchment of suppression. The pace at which states have enacted anti-democratic voter suppression laws in 2021 is unprecedented in American history. So, if the right to vote is the foundation of our democracy, we must all acknowledge that that foundation, as a result of all these suppressive voting bills, is crumbling. We all have a responsibility to act and do our part to work strategically to protect the vote. And that means we must educate, legislate, activate, litigate, and advocate. It's why, as a legacy civil rights organization, the National Urban League work has shifted into overdrive to resist these sweeping changes. And it led to the establishment of the division that I now head. We launched our National Reclaim Your Vote initiative, as well as we've done amazing work to ensure corporate engagement is really at the table to protect the most precious right. And thankfully, this year, we've seen another unprecedented trend: hundreds of America's most prominent corporate leaders and companies taking a stand against voter suppression. In March, 72 Black business executives signed onto a full-page advertisement in the New York Times headlined, "Memo to Corporate America, the fierce urgency is now." And they called upon their colleagues in the corporate world to join them in taking a nonpartisan stand for equality and democracy. The mayor mentioned it earlier. Within 2 weeks, hundreds of business leaders, celebrities, law firms, and nonprofits answered the call, signing an open letter opposing voting limits that ran as a 2-page advertisement in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. And then in July, more than 200 companies and business organizations urged Congress to amend the Voting Rights Act to ensure that voters of color who remain targets of voter suppression have equal and unfettered access to the democratic process. The potentially transformative influence of business leaders cannot be overstated. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you can pull businesses around, you pull the political power structure, because the political power structure listens to the economic power structure. According to the Edelman Trust Barometer, sometimes Americans trust CEOs more than their own government. I said sometimes, mayors, it's not all the times, but that's important for us to know. Therefore, brands and corporations that take a strong stand on racial justice are afforded 3 to 10 times more trust than those that don't. One company that has taken a strong stance on social issues and was in fact the first sponsor of this event is Western Union, which has been led for more than a decade by President, CEO, and Director Hikmet Ersek. In just a few moments, I will have the privilege to engage Mr. Ersek in a discussion on the private sector's responsibility to confront voter suppression. As a citizen of Austria and Turkey, Mr. Ersek brings an international perspective to issues of community and corporate responsibility. He has been recognized by Corporate Responsibility magazine as Responsible CEO of the Year and was awarded the Global Economy Prize in Business from the Kyle Institute for the World Economy for his international influence on global issues. Following a short career as a professional basketball player in Europe, I mean, that's pretty cool, Mr. Ersek began his financial services career when he joined Europay MasterCard in Austria in 1986. A decade later, he joined General Electric Capital, where he also represented the GE Corporation as the national executive in Austria and Slovenia. Ersek joined Western Union in 1999 and was named CEO in 2010. This evening, we will also be joined by George Burciaga, Managing Partner of Ignite Cities. George Basaggio is the managing partner of Ignite Cities, and he is an international thought leader and architect within the smart city category. As a response to the needs of our cities during the pandemic, Burciaga has accelerated work specific to homelessness, education, safety, and municipal broadband. He is highly regarded for his technology deployments across cities, company acquisition in 2016, and current advisory partnerships with mayors across the country. Among his numerous accolades, Burciaga has been honored by 2 U.S. presidents for contributions to government and technology leadership. His technical experience has established him as a subject matter expert globally, but his highest achievements are his 3 children and the beautiful human beings they are becoming. So I would like to welcome to the stage Hikmet and George for this conversation. Oh, yes.
George, hi.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. So let's get started, shall we? Hikmet, you run one of the largest global companies, and it has diverse business lines and 1,000 employees worldwide. Even still, as I mentioned earlier, you were the first major sponsor of this event. Why engage in the issue of voter rights?
Well, first of all, Mayor Hancock called me. Yeah, I mean, you know, look, I know Mayor Hancock for a longer time, and one thing I learned from him is that, you know, there is an issue. There is an issue being a human and not to vote. I said, it's unbelievable. That can't be. I said, yeah, that's an issue that people get, you know, blocked to vote, and we have to talk about that. I said, well, it's not the you know, thing I know about America. I said, that's new to me. Then I listened to him. I said, I'm in. And I'm in, you know, you are doing something great here. You're putting this together. This is amazing. And I'm in. And then the next thing I said also, look, if you look at Western Union customers, we have about 150 million customers worldwide. They're coming from 200 countries. Most of them coming from countries where, you know, they've been to struggle. They can't vote there. They don't know what democracy is. They really struggle and come with a dream to a country called America, and to make some money to support their loved ones back home. And if you think about that, they come here and they see a different picture suddenly. And they want to tell their relatives back home, look, this is great America. This is what we are coming, and we are making money, and we are going to support you. This is what we learn, that is what we see. And then I hear these issues. And, you know, the message then back home is not the same. And we do about 21 transactions every second. We move like, you know, $100 billion every year. And every time we move money, 21 transactions, 137 currencies, that it's more than moving money, more than a transaction, moving really sending a signal. sending a signal from America to Venezuela, sending a signal from America to Mexico, to Vietnam, to Afghanistan. We kept during these issues Afghanistan open to support the people. Not everyone in Afghanistan is a member of Taliban or a terrorist or something like that. They are people. And when we move money, people move money to support people. So all these things, seeing that, I said, hey, I have to speak up. I have to be there. And I'm also, by the way, I'm here to learn from you guys. I'm not here to, be a part of that. I'm here to listen to you. And alone this evening, what I learned is enormous. I'm going to tell to my son again, going back and say that, hey, there is hope.
Well, we really thank you for your commitment, and it's so important. I mean, just the term sending signals really represented, really resonated with me, because I'm curious about the signals that we are sending to the rest of the world with what's happening here in the US. Did you want to maybe share a little bit with us about what's the perspective of the rest of the world on what's happening, whether it be the events of January 6th or other events that we've seen in 2020, really with the rise of so many, such social justice issues laid bare?
Well, I grew up in a country, Turkey, where democracy is still in a developing process. And I grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and while I was a student, we were always looking up to America. Not only me, also, when I went to study to Austria, even in Europe, in the 80s, we were looking up everyone, wow, it works there. There's check and balances. The people have an issue, they get together, they talk about that, although they're from different parties. That unites America. And then we said also in the school, I remember, it's called United States of America. And you translate that also in German or in English, it stands for something. Unfortunately, and that was a brand, but unfortunately, I believe America is losing its brand. And that hurts, actually. It hurts for many people. I mean, I'm not even US citizen, I'm a green card holder. By the way, I can't vote, something, maybe right for vote for green card holders.
You tell us.
But we think about that. I mean, the brand America, what we in this, and I include myself to you guys.
Of course you do.
And it stands for something. And as Magic Johnson said a few minutes ago, the greatest country of the world. Guys, we have to prove it. I come from countries, and in the 70s, 80s, or in Latin America, it was kind of a hobby to storm a capital. In early mornings, early mornings you woke up.
What are we doing? We're going to storm the Capitol. Let's go.
Early mornings you had a coup, right?
Yeah.
The soldiers went and
Let's go.
there was no democracy.
Right.
And seeing that from my point of view, in my age, seeing that somebody goes to storm the Capitol in a high, the brand is so high, I had to explain next day to my friends. It was not easy. Friends calling me in Europe. And it must be harder for you guys. Can you even say, I'm not born here and all these things. But I felt kind of guilty. That has to change. And that brand America, it has to change for doing better business, being better connected, being a role model, opening doors, building bridges. It's not. The world is also a little bit going on the wrong direction, by the way. We are probably, most of us here are a kind of, product of globalization, riding the global connections, and it's getting more protective. It's getting more inside looking than outside looking. And one part of that is coming from America. It was never the case. And we can, of course, talk and blame everyone else, but I think we should also look inside first and being a role model and change ourselves and really talk to our, one thing I also, as I moved here, in the beginning, they said that you can't talk about, at the dinner table, you can't talk about religion and politics.
Politics.
For a European, it's something, the first thing you talk about that, right? Then I started, I think that changed, that's good the last 10 years. I think people are speaking up, but they're not speaking up as finding a compromise, really making their point, and I don't see at the dinner table, let's find a compromise. And I don't see leaders, political leaders also going that direction a lot. And there I believe also we as the CEOs have a voice, as you said earlier, in many things, because we probably see it as another political item. We see, okay, our employees, we have 11,000 employees worldwide. Indirect, we have about 1.2 million people with our agents together who use Western Union worldwide in 200 countries. They're looking up to us. They're saying, what are you standing for? What is good for us? Tell us. And I think that more and more, Amazon is here. Jeff, for many years, he and me were meeting. We are standing for something. And in the past, it was more political leaders were here. You were following them. But now it's lack of political leaders. People are looking, people like us, saying that, can you make your point, please? Our employees asking us. Kanika is here. I learned a lot from Kanika. Kanika, could you stand up? She represents, please. I learned a lot from Kanika. She works for Western Union. And she brought me up one day. We went for dinner, and I thought that I am one of the CEOs, reads a lot, talks a lot, listens a lot. And that dinner with Kanika was for me an eye-opener. Because she told me that as a black employee, I never can thought about that. She's afraid that when the kids come back or go to school, that they came back safe from school because they're African-American kids. I said, it's not possible. She said, yeah, I'm every day pray that they're safe, that they don't get kind of insulted and coming back. And, for me, it was a learning. Then we started that relationship, and she told me about, I thought I'm the most liberal, one of the most liberal and more open, diversity CEOs. And that evening, I learned so much about the issues that exist. And I encourage every CEO, every business leader, talk to your people. Be open. Don't sit in a corner office. You think you know everything better. They know it better than you. And the beauty of a CEO is probably taking that idea and implementing that. But, thank you, Kanika, again, for that dinner. So.
Wow. I think there is just so much from what you said. Stand for something, right? And talk to your people. George, I would love to hear from you about why it's important for the corporate sector to engage. And I'll add to that, one thing that we've seen is that the public has been demanding for corporations to lean in on this issue. And, quite frankly, when I think of the, tragic murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, it seemed like the response was so quick. But when we started to see these voter suppression bills popping up, I felt a little bit of a hesitancy and saw a little bit of a delay. So can you speak to why it's important to engage? And is the public demanding that corporations engage? Is that a fair ask?
So first, let me acknowledge Mayor Hancock for coordinating this, and Clarence from NLC, and Mayor Lightfoot, and I see mayors I have the opportunity to work with on a regular basis for that very cause. Mayor Jones and Mayor Turner and so many other mayors, Mayor Hardy Davis, where we get to listen to what's important. And a reminder for me every day is when I go home and look at my kids. Because I grew up in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Chicago, and my focus to create change was based on necessity. I was tired of being hungry. So when we think about voting, I'm tired of being hungry. When we think about access, I'm tired of being hungry. And I know that there's families that are out there in our vulnerable communities, Black and brown communities, that are tired of being hungry. And the truth is, if we're going to create the change that's required, private sector has to stand up, has to engage, and has to create the innovation that supports our communities as a whole. So while I work with mayors to really create change and rethink how we're going to move forward, I leverage technology. That's what we do. So Ignite is a consulting practice that works with mayors and private sector to reposition, rethink how we're going to recover and rebuild. Period, that's it. It's pro bono. We don't charge for the services we conduct. The idea is, how do we take private sector and help them rethink how we're going to reimagine, how we're going to rebuild, and how we're going to actually put those products into a city based on purpose. If we're going to talk about creating change, voting has to occur. But there's things that private sector will have to do in order for that to happen. We've been working on building broadband connectivity across the country so it becomes the fourth utility. Electricity, water, gas, connectivity should be the fourth. We're sleeping on that. We have mayors in this room who are working hard to create that change. Mayor Hancock, Mayor Jones, Mayor Hardy Davis, Mayor Cantrell, Mayor Garcetti, Mayor Suarez. Those are mayors we get to work with, plus so many others, to create the change that's required to move us forward. Why do I say that? Well, we can't expect 30% of our city to vote or to know how to vote if they're not connected and they're not receiving the information that's required. So the street has to be connected. It's not about being affordable, it's about being accessible. If it's not there, it doesn't matter if it's cheap. It has to be present. If it's there, I need to ensure families know how to use it. If we're going to focus on making sure our families are competitive, Black and brown, vulnerable communities, then we got to give them the tools. I know that firsthand because I was hungry. So when we hit a wall like we have right now, where this meeting is to resolve the wall we hit, we got to reposition. It's not about falling back, it's about repositioning. How do I stand up, reposition, and then move forward? Progress isn't just us talking, it's about us moving forward. I can run in place all day long, but I won't go anywhere. So the question is, what am I doing to move forward? So that's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. That's why when Mayor Hancock called, of course, one, he's a brother, he's a family member to me. The mayors are here. That's the relationship we have, because we feel responsible to do our part. Remember, I said what we do is pro bono, so I don't get paid to run around. The truth is, we do it because it's the right thing to do. And if we don't spend this time together, refocusing and repositioning, we'll fall behind. So that's why we're here, and that's why private sector, whether it's us working with MasterCard or Qualcomm or Cisco or Jacobs Engineering globally, they've worked with us to help reposition the way cities think, and our mayors came to the table to make it happen. So because of those two coming together, we sit in the middle, pushing it forward.
Purpose. I think that's really important. Do you have any advice or, action steps, George, for folks in this room? There's so many folks from the public sector, nonprofits, and the corporate sector about how they should engage and how they can work together really to move forward on this important issue.
Absolutely. First of all, there should be no box, right? We have to rethink everything, challenge everyone. So I have the privilege of not only working with incredible mayors across the country, but also with Magic Irvin Johnson and Jim Reynolds from Loop Capital. So they're partners of ours as well. And what they've done is they've stood up an infrastructure fund called JLC Infrastructure for municipalities. And we're responsible for identifying where to place that funding for smart lighting, smart metering, broadband, all of these incredible opportunities where we can not only figure out how to deliver it, but also how to make sure it's sustainable long-term. Meaning, can we actually deliver a product, pay for it, but find a way to redirect the costs, take existing costs and place them towards it. And then number two, find new forms of revenue to pay the balance of it off. So that it's not only an investment that's been covered, but we're actually redirecting costs that we've resolved, issues we've resolved, expanding connectivity, smart solutions, but then also finding new revenue for municipalities. So when you think it's not going to happen, rethink that. Call us. Number two, there's companies out there like Magic's firm, JLC. There's companies out there that are really rethinking how to work with municipalities, and that's where those public-private partnerships really come into play. There's a lot of groups talking about it. We really need to get involved and make it happen.
Thank you for that. Before we open up questions to the audience, I would love to hear from you both. Any message that you would have for our lawmakers in Washington? We definitely are at a point, at a standstill when it comes to voting rights right now. And unfortunately, it doesn't align with what we've seen in years past. Voting rights used to be a bipartisan issue. So from each of your standpoints and each of your positions in our society, what message would you send to our elected officials in Washington?
Do something. Do something. Do something. We're again. If none's happening, we're standing still. So we need to do something. Before I go any further, I also like to thank you for being here. I know that in a global position, you have a lot of things to do. I don't mean to distract from the question, but I just want to say thank you because too often folks at your level don't show up, and I appreciate that. I can really appreciate that you came here today to really set the tone. And because of what you're going to do, other global positions will show up for this specific request, right? So thank you for doing that because without you knowing, you're doing a lot more than you probably think right now. So thank you for that. And I think we need, I mentioned to, it may have been Mayor Jones and Mayor Hargis, we got to keep this going. This has to be the beginning of a number of events that are scheduled from now on moving forward, whether it's monthly, quarterly, I think monthly, where this group is coming together and it continues to grow. And then they see that there's a group paying attention, pushing forward and creating change, and this has to happen. So I think that will create the change that's required.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I will do something.
Yeah, I'm gonna bother you now. I'm gonna
Do
get your email.
something, that's for sure. I'm just surprised that nothing's happening. That's something that makes me personally, being a CEO of a company, if you don't do something, the others will do for you.
Right.
And so think about that. If you are sitting there, you think that you're doing nothing, regardless how many people vote or not, you're gone. And if you don't react to the people's voice, if you don't react to the voice of the customer, in that case, voice of the people.
That's right.
It's an issue.
Absolutely.
It's if you run you're a politician or a business leader, it's an issue. So I would definitely add, George, on your comment, if you don't react, somebody else will react to that one. And that's really not a symbol of what America stands for.
That's right.
The world is watching. It's watching all of us, no matter what sector you're in. And so,
just if I add something,
course, go ahead.
I just came back from Moscow, and if you're telling America, you were been in Moscow, oh my God, what's happening there? Obviously, and we discussed that issue there. And the people in Moscow office, they're Russian people. They're talking, we are having dinner, and they're saying that, tell us, what's that, Russia it's not probably the symbol of the best democracy, but at the same time, they are watching America.
For sure.
They are talking at the
world
dinner
is.
table, our employees talking about the dinner table, saying that, tell us, Hikmet, how do you feel there?
You're right.
And that's something that I think if you go back, talk to your communities, saying that, let's go back, if you have the chance. The world is in a very, very strange situation currently. And every crisis is an opportunity.
100. Timing's everything.
And we have the chance as America to change that. If we don't do something, somebody else will do it.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions from any of our audience this evening?
I think in the back. Or she's just saying hi to me.
Yeah, I am just saying hi. I'm Tina Hone. I work for Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who could not be here today, and she's mortified because she really wanted to be here. So this is actually an advertisement. One, I'm from Chicago too. We're gonna have to talk.
There you go.
Roseland, I don't know where you grew up.
There you go.
But I hope that if we reconvene, that we can reconvene in Chicago.
There you go.
So I wanted to have a chance to say that.
Well, can you tell the mayor, let's do that then? Because
I'll tell her, and then she'll say, "You promised what?" But thank you for
perfect.
being here.
We're going to hold you to it,
It's
Tina.
fun.
We're following you out.
Good, good.
Okay.
All right, we have one here.
Yeah, what's happening, y'all? My name's Elijah, 23 years old. I'm a member of the 2021 Cities United cohort from Louisville, Kentucky. And throughout this conversation, I've heard a lot of talk of investment and making sure that marginalized communities have the tools as far as the private sector giving back. So with both of you all being a part of the private sector, I'm curious as to whether or not plans of investment have been made as far as the black community goes, and if so, have you actually sat down to discuss with the black community what the needs are and whether or not we're willing to take on what y'all plan to invest? So.
I'll start at least. So first of all, I think it's a great question. The fact that we work with mayors across the country means we're in the trenches in those neighborhoods every day. Mayors are in the trenches every day. They don't sit back and watch it happen, so they're actually in the neighborhoods. And as I mentioned, wait, before you take that picture, you got to listen to me. You asked the question, I'm going to answer it. So while we're doing this, I'm from one of those neighborhoods, so I know what it's like. And a couple of good examples would be, in New Orleans, they just actually awarded to Irvin Magic Johnson, Jim Reynolds, public Wi-Fi. So they're going to actually deploy public Wi-Fi across the entire city, subsidizing about 30% of all of the connectivity to zero, meaning that families that couldn't afford it will now be connected, which changes the way they learn, the way they live, the way they work, the way they connect to healthcare. So that's a great example of creating change when private sector comes together and a mayor steps up and says, let's make it happen. If anyone knows Mayor Cantrell, she's the city of yes. And she was all about it from day one. So that's a great example that actually answers, the question you just asked.
Let me ask this question. Number one, let me thank you both for what you're doing, Western Union Ignite. Let me thank you both. But my question would be, how do you convince those CEOs that have not stepped up? What do you say to them to convince them that they should step up and become actively engaged in this conversation?
So, shall I?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're the big one.
Well, I'm not sure, yeah. Yeah, I gained some weight last year. First of all, obviously, as a CEO, you think sometimes you have a power, but at the end of the day, you have to understand that you are a human being. Be authentic. When we CEOs meet at the BRT or at the World Economic Forum, and the discussions we had in the past was all about bottom line, all about short-term return, all about only on the shareholder value. And the word shareholder value was on the top of our agendas. And we were afraid about the next quarter, but our hostage about shareholders. And I think that has changed the last 6-7 years. It became very important to talk about stakeholders. And the stakeholders really start to drive the discussion as a CEO. We've been at the Western Union issuing our third ESG report, Environment, Social, and Governance report. And that puts you in a different spotlight as a CEO and a pressure, actually, how to satisfy your society. I believe that we at Western Union have an agreement, a contract with the society. And if you have a contract with the society, you have to deliver. And at these meetings, I asked that question: is it Amazon here, or Salesforce.com, or Coca-Cola, or IBM? We really talk about the social issues, how we can raise our voice, and how we can really listen to our stakeholders. We at Western Union, I was just at my dinner table, I had 2 examples that somebody thanked me, saying that thank you, I could send money in as I was kid, as I received money to college time so I could finish college. So that's exactly the things you have to really listen to them and take that and build in the strategy. Our board meetings, we spend about 3-4 hours only on our social justice issues. We have governances where we put, saying that, okay, how many people of our employees will be Latino or Black, African American. That's a target we set, and our compensations on the ESG targets are linked to that. So it's really about stakeholder value, meanwhile, and where we're talking. Now, credit to your question, or not, credit to your question, actually. Are we there? Absolutely not. Are we talking for every issue? Absolutely not. But within the environment, I can see I've been now 11 years, or getting my 12 years as a CEO. It's quite long. I've seen that shift the last 6 years. It's happening, and people will speak even more. The other thing is that our employees recently joined. They're not joining for money. Especially the young generation, they are asking, what is my impact with the company? They're really asking that. They're young people putting pressure on us and saying that, okay, it's not about your bonus, how you're paying on year end. They like it, but it's not the bonus. They maybe go to another company if they feel a part of the social impact. And we have that discussion all the time.
I'll add one thing. Mayor, first of all, it's a great question because it kind of puts their money where their mouth is if they're going to get involved. What we've done is we've taken probably a more direct approach, and we're taking them to the city. So there's a number of mayors in this room that we've brought major CEOs to the city to sit down to do the walkthrough of the city. A good example is in Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti said, hey, I need to get money into our underserved family hands, particularly undocumented and underserved or underbanked. And how do we do that? And I said, you figure out the money piece, I'll bring the partners to the table to build a product. So we built the Angelino Connect card. The mayor raised in about 45 days about $30 million, $37 million. And then we put out a card with MasterCard, Idemia, and Mocafy, an African-American fintech firm that came to the table, built a product, and immediately started to push out. But we had to bring the execs to the table to see the cause. We had to show them the problem. Because too often there's a disconnect. They don't see the problem, they hear about it, they're selling a shiny box, but they don't realize that it's more about the mom and the 3 kids under that box or in the city, and we have to put it together for them. So we actually have to take them through it, show them, build a use case around it, and I think that's what we've been able to do really well, is build that use case of humanizing the actual issue and encouraging that technology should work for people. It's not the other way around. So that's a good example of it. It's accelerated. We then moved that across. It turned into UBI in a bunch of cities. I know we're talking to you currently now. Mayor Tashara Jones just actually awarded a current contract that we were supportive of. And there's so many others that turn to, but we're taking them to the city. And the mayors are saying, bring them. Let's have this conversation.
By the way, sorry, that's a great example. We CEOs have big egos. And if one CEO does something like that, the others want to do it also. So I can encourage you to invite other CEOs also.
That's true.
We have time for one last question.
Hi, I'm Barbara Moore. I'm the Executive Director of Democratic Municipal Officials. So we're one of the partisan voices at this nonpartisan conversation and another Chicagoan. So if we host in Chicago, I'm
There you
happy to
go.
help. But I guess my question is, how can our corporate partners help turn this from a nonpartisan conversation, where we know where most of the partisanship in this room is, to a bipartisan conversation? Because we can't win this alone. So how can you, as our corporate partners, help bring those other voices to the table and make this a bipartisan conversation on voter enfranchisement?
I'm going to give that one to you.
Well, obviously, I have Tim Daly here from my company. We discuss that all the time. How not only these issues, other issues also, having a kind of a bipartisan discussion here. And I am not that familiar with U.S. politics, but I can give you some advice from my point of view. Look, just talk to them. Don't go, what's happening is that every discussion starts with an agenda. Don't go with an agenda to a discussion and you win the people on the other side. That's what I learned, and it worked in my case every time. And it works really because, when you go with the agenda, your body language, your way you attack the issues, your way you go to that issues is already defensive. You already know, you think that you already know the outcome. You go with there sometimes, but certain things, of course you have, but certain things, issues like that, which is a social issue, you can't go with an agenda. You don't know how the other people feel there. And just put the agenda and start the discussion openly and try to find the common solution here. And it's not only one way. Societies don't work one way. So society's always been working by building bridges. And that would be my advice. I don't know, it sounds like maybe I should run for a political position, but it doesn't sound like a CEO answer, but that will be my approach.
Yeah, I think, well, I love that idea, but I think there's a fight ahead of us. I think there's a fight, and there's going to be a strong push that everyone's going to have to make to really change the way a large group of people think. So there's a bigger fight ahead of us, but I love that approach.
Well, thank you both, and thank you for all the questions this evening. It is clear we have a lot of work in store, and I learned so much from this conversation. So Hikmet, George, thank you for sharing your wisdom, and really just thank you for your support.
Thank you, and for everything you did today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jerika, Richardson, Hikmet, Ersek, and Burciaga. Thank you all very much.